Why men die earlier than women? It is the desire of man, men and women, to live long. Some have desired to live up to 90 or 100 years, and some even desire to live much longer. While this desire is legitimate, it often happens that people die when they least expect it. Historically, women generally live longer than men, and this trend may continue for reasons discussed hereunder. Even with the risk associated with childbirth, women have continued to live longer than men, and it appears that women have outsurvived men at least since AD 1500, when the first reliable mortality data were obtained. The fact that women live longer than men does not necessarily mean that women enjoy better health than men. It appears that women live with their diseases, while men die from them. Indeed, there is a difference between the sexes in disease patterns, with women having more chronic non-fatal conditions, such as arthritis, and men having more fatal conditions, such as heart disease and cancer. Wherever they live in the world, women live longer than men. The gap between male and female life expectancy is greater in high-income countries, where women live around 6 years longer than men. In low-income countries, the difference is around 3 years. Women in Japan have the longest life expectancy in the world at 87 years, followed by Spain, Switzerland, and Singapore with 85 years each, according to WHO 2016 data. Female life expectancy in the top 10 countries with the longest life expectancy was 84 years. Life expectancy for men was 80 years in 9 countries, with the longest male life expectancy in Iceland, Switzerland, and Australia. In sub-Sahara Africa, life expectancy for both men and women is still less than 55 years in Angola, Central African Republic, Chad, Côte d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Mozambique, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. It is a fact that men enjoy certain physical advantages over women. On average, men are physically stronger, taller, faster, and less likely to be overweight. But none of these attributes seems to matter over the long haul. For whatever the physical virtues of masculinity, sadly, longevity is not among them. So why do women live longer than men? As has been noted earlier, women generally live longer than men. In all developed countries and most developing ones, women outlive men, sometimes by a margin of up to 10 years. The gender discrepancy is most pronounced in the very old. Among centenarians worldwide, women outnumber men in the ratio of 9:1. The gender gap has widened in this century as gains in female life expectancy have exceeded those for males. According to Thomas T. Pearls and Ruth C. Fretz, the death rates for women are lower than those for men at all ages, even before birth. They posited that although boys start life with some numerical advantage, their numbers are preferentially whittled down thereafter. More boys than girls die in infancy. And during each subsequent year of life, mortality rates for males exceed those for females, so that by age 25, women are in the majority. Why do men die young? And why do women die old? Available evidence points to behavioral as well as biological differences between the sexes, differences in the effects of medical technology, as well as social and psychological factors. Women most probably have a biological advantage that allows them to live longer. Today, given the general progress in female life conditions, women have not only regained their biological advantage but have gone much beyond it, both because they tend to engage in fewer behaviors that are bad for health than men do, and because they better profit from current advances in healthcare and living conditions. Why men die earlier than women? In the following paragraphs, we shall be looking at some of the factors affecting male and female life expectancy. In other words, we shall be discussing why women generally live longer than men and why men mostly die before women. Sex hormones. Experts suspect that gender differences in mortality patterns may be influenced at least in part by sex hormones, namely the male hormone, testosterone, and the female hormone, estrogen. The conspicuous peak in the sex mortality ratio at puberty, for example, coincides with increased testosterone production in men. Because the male hormone has been linked with aggression and competitiveness as well as libido, Some researchers ascribe this spike in male mortality to testosterone toxicity. Later in life, testosterone puts men at risk biologically as well as behaviorally. It increases blood levels of the bad cholesterol and decreases levels of the good one, putting men at greater risk of heart disease and stroke. Lifestyle and behavior-related fatalities are still among the most common causes of death among men and are still much higher in men than in women. Men are more than twice likely to die in car accidents, compared to women, for example, and almost 4 times likely to take their own lives. There are fundamental differences in lifestyles that allow women to better benefit from the general progress in health. For instance, although women now participate massively in the workforce, their roles remain different and their professional activities are, on average, less prejudicial to their health. In addition, women often relate to their bodies, their health, and their lives in general in a much different way than men. Illnesses and diseases. Illnesses related to smoking and alcohol consumption also kill more men than women. But heart disease is the main cause of the gender gap here. Men experience an exponential rise in the risk of heart disease beginning in their 40s. In contrast, women's risk of dying from heart disease does not begin to increase until after menopause, and it approaches the male risk only in extreme old age. Biological factors. As we have mentioned, sex hormones are thought to be important factors in determining the relative susceptibilities of the genders to aging and disease. Less obvious is the contribution that menstruation might make to longevity. Because of the monthly shedding of the uterine lining, premenopausal women typically have 20% or less blood in their bodies than men and a correspondingly lower iron load. Because irons are essential for the formation of oxygen radicals, a lower iron load could lead to a lower rate of aging, cardiovascular disease, and other age-related diseases in which oxygen radicals play a role. In his book, Why Men Die First, How to Lengthen Your Lifespan by Marianne J. Legato, male mortality is shorter in part because males are more fragile and inherently vulnerable than females from birth. And unlike women, who have fought hard to have their specific health needs validated and addressed, men haven't demanded equal treatment. Chromosomal factors. Chromosomal differences between men and women may also affect their mortality rates. The sex-determining chromosomes can carry genetic mutations that cause many life-threatening diseases. Because women have 2 X chromosomes, a female with an abnormal gene on one of her X chromosomes can use the normal gene on the other and thereby avoid the expression of disease. Men, in contrast, have 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome, and so they cannot rely on an alternative chromosome if a gene on one of the sex chromosomes is defective. More generally, the genetic difference between the sexes is associated with better resistance to biological aging. Furthermore, female hormones and the role of women in reproduction have been linked to greater longevity. Estrogen, for example, facilitates the elimination of bad cholesterol and thus may offer some protection against heart disease. Testosterone, on the other hand, has been linked to violence and risk-taking. Cultural conditioning. According to Legato, men's medical challenges owe a great deal to cultural conditioning where men are expected to endure pains and not show weakness in any form. Many men only seek medical counsel when under duress from a spouse or when their condition has deteriorated to a severe state, while women can logically ask for help very early. Women take fewer risks. Unintentional injuries are the 3rd leading cause of death in men, and the 6th cause of death for women, according to the Center for Disease Control, CDC. This can be blamed on biology, as the frontal lobes of the brain, which deal with responsibility and risk calculation, develop more slowly in men than women. Women succumb to heart disease later. Heart disease is the leading killer of both men and women, but men are more likely to develop it, and die from it, as early as their 30s and 40s. Women, on the other hand, typically develop heart disease 10 years later than men. They are protected from it until menopause, since their bodies churn out estrogen, which helps keep arteries strong and flexible. Women have stronger social networks. People with strong social connections have a 50% lower chance of dying than those with few social ties, according to a 2010 study at Brigham Young University. Most men tend to hold their stress and worries close to their chest, while women tend to reach out and talk to others. The only exception here is married men, which studies have shown that they are likely to be healthier and live longer. Women take better care of their health. Men are less likely than women to visit a doctor. Men often deny illnesses. They minimize symptoms because they do not want to go to a doctor and find out that something is wrong with them.